They come in all shapes and sizes, all hues and textures. Some are round, gray, and dull. Others are sharp, smooth, and brilliant. This one may be tempting and just a little bit mashugana. Julio Urdaneta has been in the journalism game for a long time. He's produced countless articles for print and radio and developed stories for TV and social media. Most recently, his focus has been tuned to international economics. But recently, he tells me his thoughts have turned to hell, and not because of politics. Apparently, it's my fault. So, with little idea of what I'm getting into, I'm handing over control to Julio. I really don't know what he's going to ask, but I do know it will be another cobblestone to place on our path.
Talk to me about your book. Why is Washington, D.C. Hornytown? I mean, it's not New York, it's not L.A., it's not the cities you would associate with this noir, like New Orleans or even Atlanta, but it's just happens to be, the center of government in this country. Why D.C.?
So there are two reasons.
Okay.
The very simplest reason is I've lived in this area most of my life, so I actually know D.C. very well. And unlike what they think outside the Beltway, there are actually several D.C.s. There are people who live here their entire lives and have developed a very rich culture. And so there is a discrete D.C., but there's also the governmental D.C. that we think of. And then there is the transient sort of ambassadorial D.C.
The diplomats, the people that comes from other parts of the country to work here for a short period of time.
And so from that point of view, D.C. doesn't have a unique, but it has a wonderful, I don't like the term melting pot anymore, but it's a wonderful stew of different cultures, which retain their individuality and yet also forms this wonderful broth that we all can sort of share and understand. But there's another reason why I decided that in my fictional world, after the devil took a vacation in Washington, D.C. and discovered that humans had gotten better at torturing humans than his own minions, that D.C. would be the perfect place to sort of bring up a section of his homeland to upskill the workforce.
Maybe this is because there are so many in D.C., maybe this is an embassy of hell in D.C.
It could be that, but I actually went all the way back to Dante.
Okay.
So there's a folktale, and the first time I was told this folktale, it was told to me as true, and I like to believe it's true because I think it's funny.
Okay.
So if you remember your American history, your U.S. history, the capital of the United States was originally in New York.
Correct.
And they decided that they wanted to move it down towards the center of the country, which in this case was where
Washington, D.C. is now,
Correct.
Because we had the 13 colonies at that time.
You got it.
Yeah.
So George Washington went to L'Enfant, Pierre L'Enfant, and reportedly said something to this effect. Sir, we believe the British are coming back, and we do not have the army to stop them. Can you design a city so that the British army gets lost and we have time to retreat? And if you look at the layout of D.C., it is so Byzantine.
Yeah.
It is so confusing. It's so easy to get lost that on a surface level, driving is its own hell. But going even further than that, some people say the Washington story may be true, but they also said that L'Enfant loved Paris. He loved his hometown of Paris. And so he built into D.C. many, many circles. And so when I was trying to think about where I wanted to place my suburb of hell, I thought of Dante and I thought of circles.
There
and
you
D.C.
go.
has so many circles
yeah.
that I thought it would be the perfect place
DuPont
to place.
Circle.
Absolutely. There's DuPont Circle. There is the circle at Western Avenue where Chevy Chase merges into
merges
DC.
into DC, exactly.
And so that's why I physically chose it, because I thought the circles would resonate with Dante's writing. Plus, you have the obvious political ramifications and connection to hell.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest,
Yeah.
politics is making Faustian deals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Coming back to your book, where or in what period of time this Hornytown Chutzpah takes place?
So Hornytown Chutzpah is a modern book. It takes place actually, relatively speaking, now, whenever now happens to be.
I was gonna say because it's not clear in the book exactly when. It could be the 40s, it could be the 50s, it could be.
So there's some language that comes very naturally when you write noir,
Yeah.
which lends itself to the 40s and 50s. There's some musicality, there's some rhythm that's a lot of fun. When you get into some of these metaphors, these juicy, awesome metaphors, you sort of fall into that Raymond Chandler trap,
Yeah.
and that's enjoyable. But I'll also mention several times early on that they check their cell phones or that they do other things to sort of give little cues that we're also in today. However, one of the things you want to do, or what I wanted to do when writing a book, is you don't want to date it so specifically that the reader feels like the story is no longer relevant, or that it's a modern setting that, well, it's not modern anymore, so who cares? So you try to make it evergreen. You try to make it a place where you can imagine your characters living 10 years from now and 20 years from now, even though you don't necessarily know what that future will look like. And if they lived 20 years ago, they
Yeah.
could probably navigate that too, because in some respects, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
The way we communicate, the
Absolutely.
way
Yeah.
we deal with the world. In some ways, we still do things that people did in the 1500s, and the world hasn't changed. And so there is this balance when you talk about setting and time and how people fit into different eras and what era you're actually in.
Exactly. That's the beauty of, atemporality, These characters of yours inhabit a dimension where time is, malleable, if you may, because like you said, even though there are some hints of, using cell phones or doing things that we do nowadays, the language of this piece could easily be in one of those all pulp fiction like books from the 50s, the 40s even. So
Absolutely. And I know that you have a current connection to The Wizard of Oz.
correct.
And most people think of The Wizard of Oz as a very old book and a very old movie that takes place in a yesteryear fantasy world.
Yeah.
But if you read the book or see, let's say, the 1939 Judy Garland movie, most people miss that the Tin Woodsman was carrying a pistol.
True.
And so in the filmmaker's mind, and maybe even in Frank L. Baum's mind, it was contemporary. Yet most of the movie, the way it is created, most of the book, the way it's created, our mind accepts it as a yesteryear story, as something maybe more even in a Tolkien-esque world.
And then on top of that, you have Wicked,
Absolutely.
which brings it into a completely different dimension.
Which is one of the interesting things, because when you go from The Wizard of Oz to The Wiz to Wicked,
Exactly, to Wicked, The Wiz, exactly, which is
you see each generation basically saying, how do I speak to today's audience? What are the issues that are of relevance? What are the issues that are important? And how do I revive this piece? Now, Hornytown Chutzpah is not an adaptation, but it is an homage to a degree to the yesteryear style of noir. So if you have seen Humphrey Bogart or if
Yeah.
you had read Raymond Chandler,
Hmm.
you have sort of in your mind what a noir might be like. So it needs to have complementary echoes of that. And yet it's also got to speak to the modern way of thinking. For example, one of the things I was determined not to do is fall into the trap of misogyny. Because when you look at classic noir,
Yeah.
they are very,
Objectification of women. Yeah.
very much so. And so that was something I wanted to stay away from.
Hmm.
And so that's another way, from one perspective, it's been modernized. Because I didn't think you needed to have that to have a successful noir.
You do not. You do not, for sure. Let's go back to the concept of the book. One of the things that caught my attention was that it was a very quintessentially Jewish book. It even includes a glossary of terms that I have to go back and forth to while I was reading. And yet, you know, one of the tenets of the Jewish faith is that there is no hell. So how do you connect the intrinsic Jewishness of the book?
Oy vey, I'm a mashugana.
Yes.
I'm a crazy person.
Yes, yes.
So, one of the important parts of Judaism, from my secularly raised perspective,
Yeah.
is that we hold highest the idea of study, the idea
Okay.
of contemplation. So, nothing in the Torah itself is sacred, even though the Torah is sacred. Everything is up for debate. And so, this concept of what if we got it wrong? What do we do next? Is really a pretty practical Jewish thought. And if you think about a group of people who have, through their history, had to constantly flee and were part of
Hmm.
a diaspora, so that you see African Jews
Yeah.
develop a specific culture and South American Jews develop a specific culture and US Jews, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
And the cultures are different with a few sort of foundational similarities. So, what you sometimes see with some religions is they say, well, that offshoot is wrong. It's not the
Yeah.
true form of the religion. In the form of Judaism I was taught, they're all correct. In fact, I've sort of grown to believe that when you look at Christianity, when you look at Judaism, when you look at Buddhism, when you look at Taoism, when you look at Muslim faiths, I think each of them have beauty in it. I think each of them have an answer to the puzzle. I don't think any of them have the entirety of the answer. So the idea that Jews got this wrong and they have to deal with their world being upset and sort of figure out how to navigate a new truth seems to me to be very much in the spirit of what we need to do. Because if we forget to look in the mirror, if we forget to look at our own reflections, that's when we become stagnant. It's when we become lost. It's when we risk becoming a monster that does actually belong in hell.
Interesting. My final question to you: one of the things that caught my attention is that the main character carries a gun that shoots Manischewitz wine to demons. So it it really resonated with me. How did that come to be, that inspiration?
So it was absolutely conscious.
Okay.
And I thought that, well, I'll be frank. I thought it was funny. I
Oh,
thought
it totally is. Yeah, I agree with you. But yeah.
I thought the idea of a detective carrying basically a super soaker or a
Mhm.
squirt gun and spritzing demons in hell to sort of melt them and dissolve them with a kosher wine Manischewitz, which is, for those of you who don't know Manischewitz, the cheapest, sweetest wine available that most Jews actually shy away from because it's so low alcohol and it's so sweet. And yet we've all had it, at least in the United States, or at least my part of the Jewish experience. So it is this very common thing that no one really wants. So because it's so cheap, our detective can afford to put it in his super soaker.
Interesting.
And but it also does, as you said, reflect back on other myths and other belief systems
Absolutely.
in which how do you fight a demon? How do you fight the devil?
Hmm.
And you need to do it through an object which contains belief, an object which is sacred because it carries your faith and trust in God.
Hmm.
And I think I hope I pulled off the idea that we can use Manischewitz, which is spiked with a brucha, which is spiked with a blessing of the wine,
Okay.
so that it's similar enough without causing unease or offense to other religions who might actually be much more devout in the power of holy liquids.
Holy liquids. I like that phrase. Hornytown Chutzpah is out. You can find it in Amazon. You can find it in Andrew Healy's own website, right? And in selected bookstores in the United States. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Julio.